Hello, welcome to another tonalist landscape oil painting demonstration. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy. And the painting I'm bringing you today is called Imagination Bay, and it is a 5 by 10. Painted this, I think it was last week. I like this 5 by 10 size, and I haven't been doing a lot of them. I'll tell you why. I really like the panoramic, small panoramic. Um, I can't get like stock frames that size, but I've made a deal with my local framer where they're going to make some frames this size for me out of scrap. So hopefully there's going to be a lot of cool frames there. And so I started working this size. And this painting was very low res. The original reference, which was basically just that landform you see me paint there. By the way, working on hardboard here. It's been coated with 2 coats of transparent gesso, and this is burnt umber augmented with some alizarin crimson. And it looks like possibly a touch of perylene black, just to kind of even things out. Yeah, so that was the main thing, and those little islands coming out. The background mountain there I just did. I pretty much just painted it in. Now, the rocks and things, though, in the reference image, the Adobe Gizmo provided me reference for that, which was awesome in perspective. Way more involved than what I wanted to paint, but it doesn't really matter. The AI is going to provide you like photo type stuff if you're giving it photo type stuff, and the same rule, painting rule applies, which is you need to simplify what's going on in the reference. Not just simplify it, you need to design it. You need to take inspiration from the reference image, but not copy the reference image. Now there are times, in fact, I had a painting. It's good enough. You'll see it here in the channel, but I found it quite frustrating because it was one of these tree and sea paintings I do a lot of, and it was so complex, this trunk, that I actually really slowed down and drew it out. And I don't really like to work like that with paintings. You want to keep things loose and fresh, and lots of space, and for feeling and air, things like that. Now, I'm not the best painter of air out there, but I get an airy feeling in my stuff. There's a bit of air there, and obviously a bit of abstraction, getting back to the designery thing. This painting felt quite designed, and that's another thing, just setting it up. The reference, I wanted some rocks or something on the bottom as opposed to nothing, just beach. And I've done plenty like that. Now, if that was the case, I might have just done a streak of dark or something, anything to stop your eye. Here's a tip. You want a tip? Right. Okay. So I had to refresh my memory. Here's your tip. Don't put, like, if the bottom of your painting is not a good place to put a bunch of bright, eye-catching stuff. Usually, I think it's more the opposite. It's a place to keep things kind of dark and subdued. People have eyes. I feel, again, it's subjective and objective at the same time, but that people's eyes tend to come in from that our lower left corner and then move around. Oh, what's this? The book? Okay, we'll get back into this after the book. There it is. It's a resource for any one of you that are interested in this sort of approach to painting. $60, US international shipping is included. That'll be signed and numbered, and I will ship it to you anywhere on the planet. There you go. Anyway, yeah, the same goes for the side. My favorite place to put the brightest bit is Well, in a scene like this, it might be a wave, but here it's probably going to be that bit of light up against the landform. I do that almost religiously. I believe in it because it really helps pull the focus of the composition together with the values and the color. Yeah. Now I had a pretty good bit of reference for the sky. I'm real happy with the way this turned out. You know what I recall thinking about while I was painting this is that, you know, I've painted lots of skies. You could watch. It occurred to me today. You could probably watch my channel for several days straight, one video after the next. But that's just talking about all the 15-minute ones. Anyway. What I was thinking about was like how, you know, the way the paint goes on the board, it's always a little different. The level of transparency. Lots of times I find as a painter that's, you know, been working a while, that a lot of my struggles when I'm struggling is transparency where I want opacity and opacity where I want transparency, things like that. Anyway, let's talk about that mass there. So I wanted to keep it dark but varied. The reference was like this totally like blah, like uniform field of dark green. There was not many characteristics there, and I got a tip for you on that too, you know, if you're ever dealing with that. And here it is. You know, there are some patterns there, and you just got to find them and then play them up. You know, and if you need to, you can do that in the reference image itself using like the dodge and burn tool in Photoshop. And I will do a certain amount of that, although in this case I didn't do tons of it, but because there was very little there. So that's option, you know, B would be to kind of invent some things with the brush and then reinforce those things. And that sounds so like matter of fact and like but what I just laid on you there is the key to painting. Okay, you come up with a series of loose and expressive patterns. Sometimes you gotta maybe work them a little bit to get something that's working, but you don't at any point want to start struggling in a negative way. You want to struggle only in a positive way. And that means a lot of times that if you lay down some patterns and it's just the way it's coming out, a lot of times you just roll with it. Just say, okay, well that's the way this is going to be. And that goes for the sky, that goes for the land, the masses, every mass in the painting. It's all just paint on the board at the end of the day, really. You know, that's another good thing to remember, that you could say, oh, I'm painting foliage, I'm painting bushes, but you're really just painting shapes, colors, values. I tend to, in the back of my mind, I know I'm painting trees, and where that comes into my technique would be, maybe I would vary my brush handling, or there's certain types of brush handling which you might get away with in a sky or painting some water or something, which absolutely wouldn't work in a foliage. A lot of times the foliage I like maybe a little bit of a press and scrub kind of move, but I use all the moves, all the brush moves everywhere, to be honest. There's I'd say my number one preference though is leaning pretty heavily on the corner of the brush. But not all the time. I use every part of the brush. And speaking of the corner of the brush, you know, right there I'm using a Robert Simmons Signet series, and I have lots of those around. That's a great brush. It's a little bit more on the stiff side, so when you're looking forward to, you're always looking for hog's bristles with oil paint, in my view. Some people do paint with the more sable types or synthetic types, and that gives you, maybe that works with figures, or it's not very good for landscape, I wouldn't say. You might be the one making it work, but generally speaking, it's hog's bristle is the best implement for the oil painting of the landscape. And what I'm looking for is, depending on what it is I'm going to be painting, I might want a brush that's a bit more loose. A lot of times I use these real cheap DOS brushes for that, or I may want a brush that's either a filbert, which is kind of a slightly rounded flat type brush, or it's a flat that I've worn into a filbert. And lately I've been very, very much getting into filberts, way more than flats. And I was a painter with flats for forever, but what started occurring to me was that a lot of my favorite brushes were the flats that I'd worn into filberts, and so it can be a lot easier just to start with a filbert. And I'll tell you my favorites right now. Absolutely love it. And if you're in the U.S., take advantage of the fact that you can order these direct from the manufacturer there in the U.S., and that's Trekel, Trekel, Trekel. And I tell you which ones I love. I love the number 2 filbert, and I love the smaller one. I think it's 0. Those are great, and I've been really using the 4 more and more, but lately I've been doing a lot of smaller paintings, so less so. But I did actually use the 4 to do an entire underpainting, and those are the filberts. Now they also have a very interesting brush. It's a long filbert, which I really like, but I find I like it, but I find it's a little too long for me. Their regular filbert is already lovely and long, and that's another thing we could talk about if we're gonna just chat about brushes here. Is I don't favor buying new brushes that are very short. The longer they are, generally the happier I am, within reason. If they get too long and weird, then that's like a specialty type brush. It doesn't really work. Um, Now, I oftentimes might be painting with a brush that's fairly short, but generally it's because I've worn it down, and that would be an exception because short brushes that I've worn down are already have thousands and thousands of brush strokes where they've reacted and accommodated what it is I'm trying to do with my paintings. So, well, it seems like I'm getting a lot of ground covered in this video, so let's just keep going on brushes. And we've talked about this before, but I know I'm always getting new people here. So, so these brushes become really awesome, really groovy. You want to clean them. Get yourself some brush soap. Actually, I'm using right now very successfully a bar of very high oil coconut soap that we got at a farmer's market. It's working really well. So clean your brushes with some mineral spirits at first. Like I use a jar with a bit of mesh from a sieve in it, and some odorless mineral spirits to get the initial bunch of paint off, and then I always finish off with soap. Yeah, I also have a jar of really nice soap too, but sometimes I use that for restoring brushes or just leaving brushes sit overnight. Yeah, definitely want to clean those brushes. Now, the last thing I want to talk about was maybe these waves. I'm real happy with the way this turned out. Big payoff in the waves, and there was less color in the reference image. You can see what the reference image looked like, by the way, in the members area. There's a link below the video. Members area is $6 a month, and me and Google split that, and you have access to hundreds and hundreds of live videos where you're basically a fly on the wall in the studio as I'm working. It includes 4K resolution, no ads, and a mixing session. You can see the primary colors I used, so you can see what my reference look like, the main colors that I would use for the painting, and listen to me, my chair creak, and to me, sometimes I get quite professory and lectury there. It's worthwhile, and really I think the way a lot of people like to do the members area is they'll just keep it on sort of off to the side in the background as they're painting, and it's kind of like having somebody in the studio with you. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for joining me. Midweek video. I'm not sure if I'll be going live this weekend. Maybe I will. We'll see. Anyway, until I come back with another video for your edification, hopefully your edification and enjoyment and education, do me a favor, do me a solid, take good care of yourself, your family, all your loved ones. Stay out of trouble, and God bless you and your family. fight the power.